Giorgio Armani, Natal to Navamsha analysis with Mercury as Atmakaraka. An Ascendant, Cancer to Aquarius. Giorgio Armani's life path transitioned from the emotionally sensitive, nurturing qualities of Cancer to the intellectual, innovative energy of Aquarius in Navamsha. In his natal chart, Cancer gave Armani a deep connection to his personal and emotional life, influencing his sense of style and how he related to the world. As his ascendant shifted to Aquarius in Navamsha, his focus moved toward intellectual pursuits, innovation, and a desire to break away from traditional forms, which aligned with his groundbreaking work in fashion. His challenge was to balance the nurturing, emotionally connected side of Cancer with the progressive, detached, and intellectually driven side of Aquarius. Sun, Gemini, 12th house, to Taurus, 4th house. The Sun in Gemini in the 12th house in his natal chart indicated a tendency toward introspection and a focus on communication in private or secluded settings. Armani likely worked behind the scenes, engaging in intellectual and creative pursuits that required solitude and reflection. In Navamsha, the Sun moved to Taurus in the 4th house, where his focus shifted to building a strong foundation and creating lasting value, particularly within his home and personal life. The challenge was to balance his intellectual pursuits with the need for security and stability in his personal environment. Moon, Gemini, 12th house, to Aries, 3rd house. The Moon in Gemini in the 12th house suggested an emotional connection to intellectual or creative endeavors that were pursued in private. Armani may have found comfort in working alone or behind the scenes. In Navamsha, the Moon moved to Aries in the 3rd house, where his emotional fulfillment came from communication, taking initiative, and engaging in intellectual or creative projects with confidence. The challenge was to balance his need for intellectual stimulation with the bold, action-oriented nature of Aries. Saturn, Aquarius to Scorpio, 10th house. Saturn in Aquarius in the 8th house in the natal chart indicated a disciplined approach to shared resources, transformation, and handling power dynamics. Armani may have experienced challenges related to control, trust, and deep emotional matters. As Saturn moved to Scorpio in the 10th house in Navamsha, his focus became more career-driven, with an emphasis on power, transformation, and achieving recognition through hard work. The challenge was to maintain emotional depth while striving for public success and professional transformation. Jupiter, Virgo, 3rd house, to Cancer, 6th house. Jupiter in Virgo in the 3rd house showed that Armani's growth came through detailed communication, intellectual pursuits, and everyday learning. He likely thrived in environments where precision and intellect were valued. In Navamsha, Jupiter shifted to Cancer in the 6th house, where growth occurred through service, nurturing others, and health-related endeavors. The challenge was to balance his need for detailed intellectual growth with a more nurturing, service-oriented approach in his later years. Mars, Gemma 12th house, to Scorpio 10th house. Mars in Gemini in the 12th house indicated a drive for intellectual and creative pursuits, often undertaken in solitude or behind the scenes. Armani's energy was channeled into thinking, writing, or creating away from the public eye. In Navamsha, Mars moved to Scorpio in the 10th house, where his energy became focused on achieving professional power and transforming his career. The challenge was to balance his intellectual, behind-the-scenes work with the need for public recognition and career success. Mercury, Gemini 12th house, to Taurus 4th house. With Mercury as Atmakaraka, Armani's soul's purpose was closely tied to communication, intellect, and creative expression. In the natal chart, Mercury in Gemini in the 12th house emphasized intellectual pursuits carried out in private, reflective spaces. Armani likely thrived in environments where he could analyze and innovate away from public view. In Navamsha, Mercury shifted to Taurus in the 4th house, indicating that his intellectual focus later in life turned toward building something lasting and secure, particularly in his home life or with regard to his legacy. His challenge was to integrate his intellectual drive with the need for stability and creating a strong foundation for his life and work. Venus, Taurus, 11th house, to Cancer, 6th house. Venus in Taurus in the 11th house indicated a love for beauty, luxury, and relationships within social or professional groups. Armani likely enjoyed building connections that supported his artistic and financial goals. In Navamsha, Venus moved to Cancer in the 6th house, where his relationships became more service-oriented, and his focus shifted toward nurturing and taking care of others in his daily work. The challenge was to balance his desire for beauty and luxury with a more nurturing and service-oriented approach to life and work. Rahu, Capricorn, 7th house, to Gemini, 5th house. Rahu in Capricorn in the 7th house in the natal chart indicated a desire for power and control in relationships and partnerships. Armani likely sought to build strong, authoritative relationships that supported his ambitions. In Navamsha, Rahu moved to Gemini in the 5th house, where his focus shifted to creative pursuits, intellectual exploration, and self-expression. His challenge was to balance his desire for control in relationships with his need for intellectual freedom and creative self-expression. Ketu, Cancer, 1st house, to Sagittarius, 11th house. Ketu in Cancer in the 1st house suggested a detachment from personal emotional needs, with Armani focusing more on his public persona and the needs of others. In Navamsha, Ketu moved to Sagittarius in the 11th house, where his focus shifted toward detachment from societal norms and expectations and an exploration of broader philosophical or humanitarian goals. His challenge was to balance his detachment from personal and societal concerns with a desire for intellectual and spiritual exploration. Mercury as Atmakaraka. With Mercury as Atmakaraka, Giorgio Armani's life was defined by intellectual curiosity, communication, and creative expression. Mercury's influence highlighted his role as a thinker and innovator in the world of fashion, where he revolutionized design and presentation through a thoughtful, calculated approach. In the 12th house in his natal chart, Mercury showed that much of Armani's intellectual work was done behind the scenes, allowing him to analyze, innovate, and refine his ideas in private. As Mercury moved to Taurus in the 4th house in Navamsha, Armani's focus shifted toward building a lasting legacy, with a strong emphasis on stability, tradition, and personal security. His challenge was to balance the rapid intellectual energy of Mercury with the grounded, stable nature of Taurus, using his intellect to create something of lasting value.